So over the next few weeks, we're going to talk to some clients that we've worked with for a long time. Today, we're super excited to have John Barnes from Pendleton Street Business Advisors. We've worked with him for 5 years now. One of our first clients in the first year of our business. And I think I've said it before, but in a lot of ways, if you go back and watch the Footnotes podcast that we'll talk about that we produced for John, it's kind of like you can see our growth, for better or for worse, from the first one until, was it 50 something episodes? So we got to grow as in our craft in that process, which is really cool. So thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for asking me to do it. I think Footnotes is too shy of 60. I think 58 episodes were produced.
Which is a wild thing when you say it like that.
Yeah.
And that was over, what, 3 years?
Yeah, about 3 years.
And so I know we talked April of 2020.
Yeah, I think we probably got it off the ground by maybe May or June of 20. I mean, it was one of those pandemic things where there was a lot of content. People were doing, I remember you were seeing a lot of interviews that were done on Teams or Zoom, and they looked bad and sounded worse. And I thought about, okay, if we're going to do something, let's do something that looks good and sounds good. And you guys were doing Pierson, and I think your wife mentioned or had been telling me about your journey as a business owner and leaving a job to start something new and different and scary and things like that. And things were going well because you guys were good at what you did. And I thought, like, well, why don't we just get Chad to do it and get Pierson to do it? So that was, I mean, we didn't bid it out. We didn't look for someone else. It was, I know this guy, he wants to be good at what they're doing. And so let's just start there.
Yeah. Which is, thank you for giving us a chance, right out of the gate, especially like in the beginning. What made you value, I want the production value to be at a certain level?
Well, I think for us, what we were trying to do is it was really a branding exercise for our firm, in that we wanted our firm to be associated with very high quality outcomes, but we didn't want it to be a commercial for our firm. And so there were so many stories that we knew of in the business community locally that shouldn't have been a secret. Some people were our clients. Most were not our clients. It was just about, this story needs to be told in a way that's interesting and also that would keep someone's attention. And so that's where it has to look good and has to sound good to just differentiate from all the kind of homemade content that's out there. And we wanted to really dignify these stories. It was as much of a love letter, if you will, to our business community as it was, hey, Pendleton Street is doing this, look at us, or whatever.
Yeah. I remember when you when we had that first call, and it was like the vision. We hadn't worked with anyone that at that point that had such a long view of it. You're like, we're just going to do this. Mm-hmm. And eventually it's going to pay off. Maybe in a way that isn't as tangible as people would want it to be. But do you feel like you've seen it pay off?
Yeah.
I know, and we've since pressed an indefinite pause, but
yeah, it definitely made a difference. But the first year, no one really talked about it. It was getting views, it was getting downloads in a fairly respectable way. The second year, it was growing, and people, when I would be out and about, would say, "Hey, wait, what's that? What's that thing?" I mean, they didn't know the name of the show. They certainly didn't know our firm, but they remembered what it looked like, or even some of the guests that had really interesting stories. And it was almost like you got a flicker from them. So it took 2 years to get a flicker. By the third year, I think people almost knew the name of it, but we were getting thousands of downloads, and people we were interviewing, their businesses were doing better because they were getting a lift. We told the guests, hey, in exchange for doing your time and willingness to do this, you'll get the footage, and you can use it however you want to on your, to further your cause. Like, this is not a commercial for Pendleton Street. We do want to be associated. Don't cut like our logo out of it and stuff, but use it use it to get better, use it to tell the story, use it as a springboard, it's for you. And I think that over that long period of trying to release almost 2 a month for 3 years, it just built up a reputation in the community. And people said, well, wow, if John's willing to spend that kind of money on something that really doesn't seem to be a direct benefit to his firm, if we did what are we going to get if we actually hired them? And we also then got a little bit smart, and we used it to interview what we thought were maybe prospects for our firm. And so it allowed me to get to know them in a way where they got something. If they walked away, they got something really great out of it. They got exposure to you guys out of it. And that seemed to work too, but it took a little while of doing that before that light bulb went off. Maybe I'm a little slow or something like that, but yes, it benefited us tremendously.
What gave you this idea of like storytelling is important? Like of all kinds, right? Because you're saying you're not necessarily talking about Pendleton.
Right.
Like, what kind of tips you off to that?
Well, I think people hire people, in the service industry, like we're not, say, a car wash where, we're washing cars. Like we are interacting with people. We're in the advice business, in an advisory business. And so I think that people want to understand, who is this person that I'm hiring? What are they like? What are they about? Can I do kind of a digital drive-by on this person and try to find out as much as possible without revealing my interest in them? It's just the time we live in. And so we needed to have, we had a website, we have all those things that talk about us, but I thought we needed to enhance kind of this digital footprint with just more content. And thankfully, you guys aren't working for free. I wouldn't expect that. I mean, we had the margin to hire you guys to do that at a quality that we thought was commensurate with the level of work that we want to do for our clients. Hiring the Pendleton Street of making things sound good and look good is what we were looking for. Sorry if that seems arrogant, but if you're not bullish on your own business, like no one else is going to be more bullish than you are about it. So
when did it, because it didn't start out as a podcast. This is just like a random side.
Yeah, it started out as just all video. And then we realized like, oh, wait, we can just take the audio and make it a podcast and get more distribution and stuff. I mean, this literally I was thinking about the content, I was thinking about the video, and I was thinking about how do we get these stories out there in a way that'll make people want to watch it? So they weren't super long. Some of them in the early days did go a little long, and you guys even helped us realize like, hey, let's cut it to 2 episodes. Let's do that. Just little sure. things from a production standpoint that I would have never thought about as sort of the client was very helpful. And I think even you guys have suggested like, hey, you do know that like a podcast is just audio, so you could do it that way. It's like, oh yeah. And student ready, teacher appear. So
yeah, I think it's funny, like just thinking about Eric, like we didn't even have the microphones in the shot. So it was like, we could have made it a lot easier on ourselves, I think, if we had like embraced it,
Yeah.
But we had set the footprint and, kept going with it as far as like the visuals first.
Yeah.
And then the audio came. Can we talk about like some of the other projects we did?
Sure.
So Footnotes was like the bulk. I know we did one kind of like becoming a client project somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But I guess we just finished those.
We've done, there's some initial website video on like becoming a client, kind of about our process and things like that. Headshots for our website. Yeah. And then most recently we've done some more in-depth client stories where it's almost like one of those had been on a Footnotes episode and one had not. But just getting those client stories out there to showcase their stories of those are people that have those situations are who we want to work with, over and over again. That people that find themselves in those stories, that's who we want to work with. And even being as specific as possible, not just the situation, but demeanor, personality, industry type, things like that, you guys really helped us say, okay, let's just not just do just a video, but let's really drill down, like, what exactly do you want? Because I think we were talking earlier, everybody, if you're a business, especially a service business, you've got unbelievable clients, you've got great clients, and then you have clients, and I think really just helping us to focus on, like, who are the unbelievable clients that you want to do more work with, and or those scenarios. And so that's what we did. And then you guys also brought out, like, hey, let's add graphics to it. Let's add some things that are kind of another visual layer in the story to enhance the story, because it is a visual medium. And those are the kind of things that, again, as a purchaser of the service, I wouldn't necessarily think about. That's where you guys as professionals are adding more value into the process by saying we can take your budget and we can do it this way.
Yeah. Because I remember with that project, we had at least 2 or 3 calls with the team where we're like, what are these stories? How do we want to tell the stories? What are the key nuggets within the story that we want to really focus on? Right. And then, then our buddy Reed McCandless came in with the graphics that we had kind of conceptualized and helped deepen the stories for sure.
Right.
When you make an investment in a video project like that, how are you using those? Because I've seen them as like sponsored LinkedIn ads. How does that? It seems like you use them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, so they land on the website, of course. We also pretty much there's one social media that we use to market the firm, and that's LinkedIn. And so, yes, we throw those videos in the long form, but also I think we're going to have them cut into clips and things like that, shorter nuggets. But LinkedIn is kind of the channel that we use because we experimented. Actually, Footnotes was a good way to experiment with the channels because we were throwing things into Instagram, we were throwing things into Facebook and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn really far and away was the best channel that got us the people that we were looking for, that we could really help.
That kind of goes in the next thing, because was it the channel in and of itself, or was it the channel LinkedIn plus John Barnes's daily posts? Because you're really diligent about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. About 3 years ago, I started posting 5 days a week, 50 weeks of the year. Learned that from a great friend of mine, Matt Vady, who sort of taught me how to LinkedIn. It was kind of a cathartic exercise because it was a way to kind of get things off my chest that I saw in our work that either bothered me about sort of businesses in general, or just recurring problems that we are hired to help in. Not that where I want to give free advice and kind of like disrupt our revenue, but just I think people need to know these things. It's just like Footnotes. I just think that people need to know those stories. And I have the ability to pay for the production to make them sound good and look good and get them out there. And I mean, we haven't had one get 1 million downloads, but we've had them get in the tens of thousands.
Wow.
And I'm proud of that. And I love what our firm does and who we help. It is my hobby and my livelihood. The posts are not that hard to write, really, because I'm writing about stuff that I'm seeing and hearing every single day. Adding video to those is just, I think, has been a smart way to just capture more attention. I mean, that is our economy, is attention. It's not money, it's attention. Being able to grab someone's attention, not for even minutes, but for milliseconds, it matters. I think that, there's all these studies out there of like, how much time do you have to really grab someone's attention, especially on social media, even something like LinkedIn, which is certainly not TikTok or Instagram. You've got milliseconds to do that. And so the visuals, whether you're using emojis or whether you've got a video that has higher than homemade production quality, it really, really matters. Every new client that our firm has gotten in the last 3 years, every single one of them has come from posting. Whether it was a video that you guys shot, a video that I shot, or just a post that we wrote. It has come from posting. Yeah. And even weirder than that is every one of those people that hired us never interacted with a post. No like, no comment, no nothing. But they were doing those digital drive-bys. They were watching and watching and watching and reading. And they finally found one or found enough of themselves and their issues in the content that they're like, I have no choice. Like I need to reach out. And so a DM flashes up.
Yeah. Like how do you delineate, I'm going to hire Pierson for this, or we're going to do it ourselves? You know, because I feel like you value both and you do both well. So like what's that process look like?
So where I'm just riffing, those are videos I just shoot myself, because a lot of times it is kind of spur of the moment and it's on my mind and I just have to get it out. But where we're telling a story and another person is involved, like a client of ours or a story that we think needs to be told, I want to dignify that by having professionals take care of the recording and all the things that you guys do technically to make them look and sound the way that they do.
I mean, that makes sense. When you put it that way, it sounds so simple, but like that makes sense. And I can see the value in that. Mm-hmm. And like those two things together on a platform like LinkedIn seems like a pretty powerful situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's, someone's listening, they're like, yeah, but the ROI, and like, if I spend $100, do I get $500 back in return? Yes. You'll probably get 50,000 in return. The timing is, what matters. Will it come tomorrow? Probably not. The next day, not. No. But I think also, like for me, if I'm in the advice business, you have to give good advice. You have to present well. But I think more than anything, you also have to be consistent. There's a lot of people that don't have a good 2-week run.
I've had many of those.
Or a 1-month run, if you will. But then something happens, it throws them off their pattern or off their cadence, and they just move on. Or they throw in the towel literally like the day before someone was about to, and then because you're not popping up in their mind and you're not that consistent voice in their feed, they just forget. They just kind of move on. So I think also creating that content where it's varied, mm-hmm. Some of your own, some video of your own, some professional video, and just mixing and matching that stuff. Also, I mean, you guys have been really good at, you help show me ways to get more use out of that content. Like, hey, let's cut a clip here, or let's do this, or let's turn this into audio only, or let's do this, or let's do that. I mean, again, way more than I would know as a client. It's, mm-hmm. It's like I hired you to cut down the tree in my yard, and then you also showed me how to turn it into firewood.
Yeah, I think it's something we talk a lot about in the office, just because we don't take lightly the investment mm-hmm. a client makes when we do a project. Yeah. And so I just feel like we all feel kind of like, oh man, we just want to make sure you get the most out of this, And it's a great feeling when you see clients using it in a variety of ways. Yeah. It's like the best feeling. It's like, great, everyone wins here,
Right.
Yeah, because in the same way your advice to us, if you gave us some business advice, which we need a lot of, we'd be like, whoa, that's amazing. But you're like, yeah, that's really obvious. It kind of both ways, It's like, right. Yeah, of course you could just, do X, Y, Z.
Yeah. When you're working with a professional in whatever field that is, like they should know more about the subject matter. They should know more about how it can be used and how to actually provide value. I mean, that's where, so if I could project for a second, people talk about having customers. Customers is transactional. I give you money, you give me a thing, and back and forth, mm-hmm. and it just works like that. Our firm has clients, and I think you guys have that mindset of we have clients. They're not customers. And the word client comes from an old archaic French word that is no longer really in use, but it basically means, the translation of it means to be under someone's protection. So when we think about our firm, it's like, hey, our clients are under our protection. Well, you guys have that not in a weird way, but it's like a protective aspect of like, we're protecting the story. We're protecting the visuals, the sound. We're also protecting the value in that we're showing you, hey, you may have bought X, but we're going to show you how to get 1, 2, and 3 also out of it. And then when the client is like, okay, so what do I owe you for that? You're like, well, that's part of the, like, it's in there, you know? And I think that's also good. Also, I'm sure that from time to time we have had scope creep and you guys just said the price is the price. And that is also what helps someone come back year after year after year after year, because there's trust there. You know, again, as a professional, you may know like, oh man, we should really charge more or this, that, and the other, and it would be reasonable. I think you guys have chosen not to, and I mean, I certainly appreciate that. I also don't want to like wear out the welcome.
Yeah, I think.
But
I mean, to that point, I think a lot of times that scope creep, we bring it to the project. You're like, oh, we should do an extra shot or extra whatever. And so we're not going to be like, and then you also have to pay us more or whatever. Right. Yeah. So yeah, we're always balancing that. I didn't know we were going to get into some etymology on a Friday afternoon. I feel like I'm in grad school all over again here. This is amazing. I asked Laura this, but any funny moments? I know there are a lot. Like, I know there were a few moments of being like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, is this lights, or like, is this camera? And we're like, I promise it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think it's where, I mean, people kind of freak out around cameras, and even like talking to guests on Footnotes. It's like, hey, at some point, if we're doing this right, you and I will be having a conversation, and all the apparatus will just auto kind of fade into the background.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know that it's that funny, but it's like you guys have a good way of making sure that happens. I mean, there's stuff all around us, but creating an environment wherever the shot is. I mean, we've shot on top of buildings with jackhammers in the background. We've been in dark places, in bright places. We've been in you know, all kinds of things that I'm sure were very technically challenging. And you know, every time you guys were like, we're going to make this work, or this is going to be cool, or like this is a way for us to kind of grow and stretch professionally also. And so that was good. Probably funny was when, I think when we did the shoot on top of the incubator,
I was thinking about that one,
where we shot 3 episodes that day, and the day before you guys have been scouting it probably, but I was up here the day before and it was going to be awesome. And then literally we got here that morning and the city of Columbia decided like, hey, let's just start tearing up the entire, Laurel and
like
Main.
A whole crosswalk there.
Yeah.
Like,
and there were 3 jackhammers going on simultaneously. And we had 3 guests booked that day. We also, I think that was the last day we did 3, tried to do 3 in one day. And so you just kind of had to laugh because it was so ridiculous. And I think, Eric just was like, I got it. And I'm sure he cussed us all out, without saying a word, but just technically like the wizardry, if you will, that was involved in getting those extra noises out was pretty amazing.
I don't know if I physically couldn't sit still while y'all were doing the interview because I was almost sick to my stomach that it was going to be a wash, because of so I remember that just staying on the roof. Because we got up there before the sun came up, and then it was right before Laura, I think she was the first guest, and it was just
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that was the other thing is we were kind of on a time clock because the sun, we were in a natural setting. And so, you can only control so many things there. And I think you guys knew how you were going to control for the sunlight, but the extra stuff from the city of Columbia was a little much.
That roof is also wild because there's no...
It's not flat.
And there's no real side to it. It's just the end. It's maybe
I think you've got enough where it could actually trip you to fall off the edge, but it's not going to stop you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
It was kind of unnerving, but
yeah,
it was good.
We made it happen. Thanks to Eric, because the audio would have been no good. I guess you kind of talked around about I know it's impossible because attribution's so hard, but how has our work helped your business grow? We talked about that, but is there like, can you correlate it in any way or like?
Well, I mean, so if you take, say, the last, 3 years, we have definitely taken on more clients each year than the previous year. And I think that does coincide certainly with, you have to let the world know that you're out there. There are people that have the problems that we solve all over the place. And a lot of them are just kind of sitting in isolation in their problems, and they don't know that there's help out there. And so when you use something like LinkedIn and you're consistent in your messaging and you're telling stories, again, with your really technical help to record the stories and all those kind of things, and people will pause and you can earn their attention. And I mean, that's what I would tell someone when they're thinking about making an investment about this is I would say, look, as hard as it may be, the linear ROI is, you're focused on the wrong thing. You need to focus on, you've got to capture someone's attention. So you can either act ridiculous or bombastic, and that's only then you're going to get typecast as not serious and not worth someone giving you money to solve their problem. Or you can do it the other way and focus on quality, quality of production, quality of story, and consistency in that quality. And you're just going to stand out, because most people, even large brands, don't have the staying power for something like that. Yeah, they've got a lot of budget, but it's not consistent. And so they kind of float in and out of your consciousness, in and out of, your line of sight, if you will, as a consumer. And for us as an advisory firm, we want to maintain a near constant presence to let people know, like, hey, you're not the only one with this problem, and it's also solvable. And here's how we help someone else. And you're like, hey, that sounds like me. And that's where I think, you putting the best possible looking and sounding version of that stuff out there is really, really important. And it kind of lasts forever. I mean, so it's like, you do pay for something and you've got it. It's not like it vanishes after 10 days and then you've got to do another one. Yeah. Like these are durable assets, if you will. I mean, we consider them to be digital assets of our firm.
Right.
That we can deploy in and out of things. And another thing I would add, I should have said earlier, is, you guys kind of helped. Things need to be specific, but it's also they need to be reusable. So again, as we build this library of assets, the shelf life on them, I think, is better having a professional kind of help us think through it than if we just did it ourselves. And it's like, yeah, well, back in 2022, or it's all like,
for sure.
There are things that are fairly, they just, like I said, have a longer shelf life.
Yeah. No, it's encouraging to hear you say that, because another guest kind of said the same thing, where it's like, they were saying we've helped them with their story for 4 or 5 years. And so now they can kind of pull all sorts of assets from years past and present, and they kind of all work together still because they're telling the same story. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us about our work and being so encouraging and letting us work, partner with you for so many years. Look forward to many more.
I'm sure there will be.